one right here, so you can hold on to that, or you don't have to. Just trying to be mindful of our time here this evening, I'd like to invite everyone to come in and find a place to sit. And feel free to bring your coffee or your water and cookies in with you. Thank you. And here we come. Well, good evening and welcome to our All Saints Church. We're gathering in here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Meg Cassander, and I have the privilege of being pastoral associate here at All Saints, and it is also my privilege to welcome you to our space. So let me begin by saying namaste. And also to begin by recognizing with humility that we are in the territory of the Onondaga people. We also have people live streaming in, so if you would like to turn toward the rear of church, right under that dove descending, there's a camera, and we can wave to our remote listeners. Welcome, welcome from wherever you are. We're really so pleased to have this second panel discussion. How many of you were able to come to the first discussion? Ooh, that's great. Repeating, and a lot of new folks too. So we're very, very happy to extend the dialogue and to continue to generate people in engaging with this really important issue. So right now, at a moment where the path to a peace is so fraught, I thought we could begin our evening together with a reflection. This is from our Pope Francis, but it is reflection on sort of the state of where we're at. I'm going to invite my friend Mary Kuhn to come and share the reflection.
This is a reflection from Pope Francis from March 23rd, 2022. The news of displaced persons, of people fleeing, killed, wounded, of so many soldiers fallen on all sides, is all news of death. Let us ask the God of life to deliver us from the death of war. With war, everything is lost, everything. There is no victory in a war. Everything is defeated. May God make us understand that war is a defeat of humanity, to make us understand that instead we need to defeat war. May God free us all from this self-destructive need that is manifested in waging war. Let us also pray that leaders may understand that buying and making weapons is not the solution to this problem. The solution is to work together for peace and, as the Bible says, to turn weapons into instruments of peace. And let us say, Amen.
And now it is my honor to welcome our Paul Welch, who serves as the Social Justice Minister for the Diocese of Syracuse, who will introduce our panelists.
Thanks, Meg. At a time of darkness, this is a moment of light. We've got to let our light come in, and we've got three wonderful people here who are going to try to share the light in their religion with us. The light of peace, the light of dignity for all. And we're lucky to have a scholar to lead off. Rabbi Oren Steinitz heads the conservative synagogue Beth Shalom Shever Shas in DeWitt. And thanks for coming. There's a whole bunch of you here. I know some of you. I don't know all of you, but with Mark Field as one of my close friends and pulling people together, maybe we'll have reciprocal events like this. Rabbi Steinitz was ordained in 2014 and is a member of OHALA, the Association of Rabbis for Jewish Renewal. He holds his doctorate from the University of Calgary. He filled me in a little bit on that, with a research focus on the attitude of the other in Jewish and Islamic legal websites. In addition, he holds a BA and a master's from Ben Gurion University in the Negev. His field of expertise includes the history of Jewish-Muslim relations and Jewish and Islamic law. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for hosting this event here. At this time, it's an act of courage. It's actually an act of defiance, I would say, to have these two signs side by side here, Save Gaza and Save the Hostages. And it is more difficult than it should be, and I applaud you for having the courage and having the almost audacity to take the stand. And I appreciate it. I don't think I ever spoke at a Catholic church before. I've spoken at many Protestant churches. I'm not really used to these guys standing behind me. I'll try and get over my own stuff here. Okay. Generally, I really hate interfaith panels. All three of us said as we walked in, why did we agree to do this, right? And I really do, and it's not because I do not value interfaith dialogue and relationship and cooperation. I do, and something that I do all the time, and I feel very, very strongly about the necessity of interfaith cooperation and interfaith work. Panels, not so much. First of all, I do try and not participate in panels where what my colleagues call manels, where there are only men in the panel. And but since I did not get any information about this, then maybe I got in by accident. The other issue is that when having 15 minutes to give the Jewish or the Islamic or the Christian stance on something, first of all, you cannot do that. You cannot give the Jewish attitude towards something in 15 minutes, because there is no one Jewish attitude towards nonviolence, right? There's no such thing as Judaism. There are Judaisms. There are as many opinions as there are Jews, pretty much about everything. Just come to Saturday morning at Beth Shalom, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. That is, I cannot represent Judaism as the flyer said. On a good day, I can represent myself. But other than that, panels tend to go in one of two directions. One, that what my teacher, Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, would call triumphalism, and I call my God can beat up your God. Basically saying, oh, see, our texts are fantastic. I'm giving 2 or 3 quotes from whatever text of my choosing. See, our religion is superior. Ha, we're good, you're awful. Done. That is not very useful. The other direction panels often go at is almost the exact opposite, and I argue this is just as useless. All 3, 4, 5, 6 people come up with great quotes about how their religion supports whatever the cause du jour is, and well, now I feel at home. Okay, and we finished the evening by saying, "Oh, see, we're all just exactly the same. All religions work for the same stuff. Everybody can sing Kumbaya together and then get out and keep killing each other the next morning." This is just as useless. I believe that the purpose of interfaith interaction is actually focusing on the differences rather than what is common, and I think that this is what makes us interesting. I think that there's a reason that you have 11,000 Christian denominations, right, or something of a sort. Jews do not tend to split all that much because we like fighting within our houses. We do not, and Muslims don't split all that much as well. And yet, I know very well that there are a lot of differences in Muslim practices and Muslim attitudes. And something that tends to happen in these panels is people tend to take the best of their religion, and it's true not only for religions, it's towards any sort of ideology or any sort of group, and compare the best in their group to the worst in another. That is something that, honestly, we all tend to do, but it's not very fair to compare, I don't know, Quakers with ISIS. I'm just giving as an example. And it is not very fair to compare whatever group you're coming from to the absolute worst group of another religion at that point. And I had a thought there. It's not fair, and it's also not useful, right? On the other hand, it's natural. Each one of us, whatever group we come from, whatever group we you think we represent. We think that we're just fine, and everybody else in our religion is, if you're to the left of me, you're a complete heretic, and if you're to the right of me, you're a fanatic, right? A reasonable person is someone who agrees with me. That's the definition. And we all tend to fall into this, oh, well, that group that I don't like is not really Jewish, or not really Christian, or not really Muslim. And that, of course, is just as useless as the other things, because as much as I don't like it, there are Jews who do horrible things in the name of Judaism, and I cannot just say, oh, but they're not really Jewish, because if they were really real Jews, they would agree with me. It doesn't work that way. Just because we use a similar prayer book does not mean that I have anything in common with Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Minister of Internal Affairs in Israel right now, who is what I would call a Jewish supremacist. But I cannot say that he's not Jewish, and I cannot say that what he is promoting does not come from Jewish tradition, because at the end of the day, we can find support in our tradition for whatever stance we have. There's a Muslim scholar that I really love quoting by the name of Khaled Abul Fadl from University of Los Angeles, California, who says, he wrote this quote right after 9/11, says, "A text is as moral as its reader." I believe that is almost universally true. You can find whatever support you have in whatever text you use to whatever you prefer. That being said, we're here to talk about nonviolence, and this is also problematic, because nonviolence is a modern concept. I dare say nonviolence is a Christian modern concept, right? We all know that all three religions have a history, a past, a present, and unfortunately, future of violence. We also know that all three religions have history, past, present, and future of peace. It depends what you do with it. A friend from the congregation told me that after the massacres of October 7th, somebody came to him and said it was even before Israel started the retaliation and started bombing in Gaza. He said, oh, the Jews and their Old Testament vindictiveness. This is how it is. This is what they are like, right? It is very tempting to take a text from somebody else's tradition and find proof that that group is deplorable. It doesn't work that way. Because honestly, I can do the same thing in the gospel, I can do the same thing in the Quran, I can do the same thing in the Talmud, I can do it in the Torah. It works. You can find support for whatever position you're taking. It's easy. But that comment about, oh, the Old Testament vindictiveness, first of all, we would never call it Old Testament. Let's start with that. Second, there's not a single Jew in the world that uses the Tanakh, the 5 books of Moses and the prophets and the writings, what we call the Hebrew Bible, as proof text for any sort of behavior. It doesn't work that way. Jews care about interpretation as much or even more so than the actual text itself. We say there's the written Torah, there's the oral Torah, and the oral Torah takes precedent, no matter what, no matter where. We have biblical stories, that's a narrative, that's great, it's fantastic, it gives us a basis for our history. This is not the way we live. We do not go, I really hope that I don't really need to explain this, but we do not sacrifice animals in our synagogues. A friend who was serving a pulpit in a southern state, who will remain nameless, said that somebody came to his synagogue, looked at the air conditioner vents and said, "Oh, are these the grates for the altar where you do the sacrifices?" Yeah, that happens a lot. We do not take biblical teachings literally. As my PhD supervisor, Professor Eliezer Siegel, said, Judaism fundamentally an anti-fundamentalist religion. We care about interpretations, a lot more than we care about text. Some like to use biblical quotes such as eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, as proof of, again, Jewish Old Testament vindictiveness. However, rabbis of the Talmud, the most authoritative rabbis from around the 2nd, 3rd century, look at this verse, Ein tachat ein, shen tachat shen, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and they wrote Ein tachat ein mamon, meaning an eye for an eye means the monetary value of an eye. If somebody poked your eye out, they have to pay you the value of the loss of your vision. We have all sorts of instances in the Hebrew Bible about capital punishment, about the fact that some people need to be stoned, not in the flint stone sign that I see on the sand, way, but that this never happened. No one was ever executed for breaking the Sabbath or for, if you remember this movie, The Life of Brian, for uttering the name of God in any way. This just never happened. The rabbis always found a reason for this not to happen. The Talmud says that the Sanhedrin, the third authoritative Jewish court that existed in the days of the temple, said a Sanhedrin that would execute one person every 70 years was called murderous. One person every 70 years. In other ways, it never happened. The fact that you have biblical texts that are problematic, guess what? We know that they're problematic. Guess what? The rabbis have known that for 2,000 years at least. One of the favorite Mishnahs, or Mishnah is kind of a commentary on the Torah. The Talmud is a commentary on the Mishnah. That's a very superficial way of explaining this. Says, the Mishnah in Sanhedrin says, here's the reason that why Adam was created singularly. God could have created, 6 billion people just like that, and why did God have to start humanity from one couple? It says, so no person would be able to say, my father was greater than your father. No person will be able to say that they come from a better lineage. And note that the Mishnah does not say, why were Jews created singularly? It says humanity was created from a singular person. Why? So we'll all get over ourselves. We're not that special. Nobody is that special. It also says, anyone who saved one soul in the world as if they created an entire world, and one who loses one soul in the world as if they lost an entire world. Right? We have plenty plenty of evidence in Jewish tradition to what we can now call nonviolence. We have plenty of evidence showing that all humans are created in the image of God. All humans are created from the same family, and that everybody basically has the same dignity. Does this make Judaism a pacifist religion? Absolutely not. Judaism also says, if somebody's out to get you, you should get them first. Why? Because we live in a world. We live in the real world. We do not live in a utopia. Fact of the matter is that people are out to get us. But when I say us, I mean everybody, but Jews probably a little more often than most. You do not. This is when I said we're focusing on differences rather than similarities, because I'm sure that the two other speakers be able to talk about will bring just as many wonderful quotes from their own religious texts about human dignity and about nonviolence. But there's one big difference between Jewish thought and Christian thought in general. And this is what Christians call turn the other cheek. We do not have that. Self-defense is another Jewish value. This does not mean, again, that there are no rules about how to conduct war. Maimonides, an 11th century scholar, has a whole book about Hilchot Melachim u'Milchamot, the laws of kingdoms and wars. There are very specific. We have rules for everything, trust me. And running, and another big difference between Judaism and Christianity is Judaism is a religion that goes way outside the boundaries of a synagogue. There's something that's supposed to guide you in everything that you do. What you eat, what order you wear your shoes in the morning, how you pray, how you run a government, right? That is not to say that the state of Israel is run according to Jewish law. There is no country in the world that's run by Jewish law. As far as Israel does not have a constitution, that's a different story. As legal system takes Jewish law as an inspiration, but does not follow it. Right? This is a big issue of contention within Israel itself. Right? I was going with it somewhere. But what you can't do is superimpose your own religious system of values on other religions. Right? Give you an example that will explain what I mean. Anybody know Ari Goldman is the New York Times reporter? When he was just starting out at the Times in the early 80s, he managed to get the Times to send him to Harvard Divinity School for a year to study a master's in religion. And he comes from an Orthodox Jewish family, and somebody asked him, a Catholic friend said, well, if your parents are so religious, how come they're divorced? That's the work. What's the problem? Catholics cannot divorce, Jews can. We have a whole tractate in the Talmud about divorce. It comes before the tractate about marriage, interestingly enough. You cannot take, if you know one religion, it does not mean that you know them all. It goes back to what I started with. If we focus only on the similarities, we can get from a place of, oh, we're all the same, how nice, kumbaya, let's sing around a campfire, to everybody's the same, to everybody should be the same, to everybody should be the same as me, to maybe those who are not like me should be shot. It's a pretty, this is, my kids say that escalated quickly, right? But there is something to that. If we focus too much on similarities, whenever we encounter differences, it can shock us. Read a quote the other day saying, somehow Jews are expected to be the only real Christians in the world. Think about it for a second. I was really taken aback by this. No, seriously, it's not a joke. And basically, Jews are expected to adhere to Christian values. And it's true from the right and from the left. And the day after day, tolerance goes in all ways. And just as the right has their orthodoxies, the left has their orthodoxies. And just because somebody does not fit neatly into these boxes does not make them immoral. Right? I'm not a relativist. I do think that there is real evil and real good in the world. You cannot wipe out these differences. And yet, how we get to evil and how we get to good can be done in very, very different ways. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Rabbi, thank you. You gave us insight into the Jewish mind, and you're right. There's so many, everyone disagrees with everyone else. But anyway, one Jewish mind, thank you, but who studied a lot and thought a lot. Now, probably the religion that we know probably least about is Islam. I mean, the Jewish and Christians have been battling, oh my God, for years. But the Muslim religion, until, maybe 9/11, and then it was a horrible way. Yes.
I think maybe we want to do Christianity next, kind of with the historical continuity.
Oh, Reverend Daly, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. He's the host, and I'm sliding him. Okay, thank you, Meg. You're right, Meg. Okay. Fred, well, with the rabbi, we went from 1 million opinions, and Fred will share with you, the Catholic Church is not noted for having 1 million opinions. Fred just celebrated his 50th anniversary as a priest. And he's a native of Syracuse, served parishes throughout the diocese. In Utica, oh my gosh, there's so many projects that he started. It's remarkable. He's done the same thing here at All Saints. And I like Fred because he's a pastor that says yes. You don't get a lot of guys in authority that say, yes, let's give it a try, but Fred's one of them. And he knows about Catholic social teaching and nonviolence because he studied it and lived it. He did graduate studies in theology at St. Bonaventure University and participated in the Institute of Social Justice River College and the International Thomas Merton Society. For me, growing up, Thomas Merton really was close to me, and he's close to Fred. And as a member of the U.S. Association of Catholic Priests, you'll enjoy Fred.
Thank you, Paul. We worked all day trying to come up with something for my biography here, but anyway. Folks, I think most of us would agree that war, intergroup lethal conflict with much killing and much injury is really the mother, the father of all violence. Just think of Gaza tonight, of the Middle East, of Congo, Sudan. Pope Francis often mentions that we seem to be in World War III in pieces. A very humiliating statement is that Christians have killed more Christians and others than any other religion in recorded history. And since the 4th century, if one were to read the history books or look at the data, one might easily conclude that Jesus Christ taught that war was a good thing, or at least Jesus approved of it. I would guess to this very day, there are very rarely have Christians globally heard sermons about the teachings of Jesus relating to war and violence. And so this evening I'd like to begin by just briefly sharing 5 gospel principles. The Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are the core teachings of Jesus. We say it's the good news. There's 5 principles that we would call primary principles. If you were to reject one of these principles, you're rejecting the gospel. In every one of these primary principles, oppose war and violence. And we know them. Those who are Christian here tonight, we know these principles. We were brought up with them. But they were never brought down from the clouds to how they relate to violence. The first one, Jesus, as a good Jew, summed up all his teachings in the command to love God and to love neighbor. And what Jesus meant by neighbor is not something vague or unclear. Jesus meant to include everyone, even our enemies. This teaching is not a marginal teaching. It is central to the teachings of Jesus. We are to love others as God loves us without condition. And so the common argument to defend violence and war is say we kill those people to defend these people. That has no foundation in the teachings of Jesus. It violates his commandment of universal love. The second one we've all been brought up with is a good Jew. Jesus taught that God is our Father, God is our mother. We are all, as humans, children of the one God, right? We've heard that from the time we're children of God. If we're children of God, that means we're sisters and brothers to one another. If I kill a human being anywhere, I offend our heavenly parent because I kill a child of God. And when I kill a child of God, I kill a sister or brother. And the third principle we've heard a million times is, and a rabbi alluded to it, is the infinite value of the human person. Story after story in the Gospels, Jesus proclaims that God became human to show us how to become more human. And he even gave his life as a victim of violence to set us free from violence. Violence and war denies all of this with its depersonalization and its subordination of human life to the needs of the state or military necessity. And the fourth gospel principle, primary gospel principle, is means and ends relationship, the relationship of means and ends. The Gospels of Jesus teach us that there's an unbreakable internal relationship of harmony between the means used and the end to which they aspire. We live this principle in ordinary life. If the end, the goal, is to get to Binghamton, the means is to drive south. If you drive north, you ain't going to get to Binghamton. So, to hold that in military necessity the end justifies the means is a betrayal of this Christian principle. Militaries try to achieve peace through war, order through chaos, security through violence, to preserve honor in dishonorable acts. In the end, they claim to save by destroying. Remember that village in Vietnam? We had to destroy the village in order to save it. How absurd in Christian prayer. Oh God, bless this nuclear submarine and make it an instrument of your peace. Historically, most Christians have no problem with that, but try to bless two men or two women who are in love with each other, and that's another topic. Dorothy Day puts it very well. There's no need to develop any special Christian theology of peace. Just look at what the gospel asks and what war does. The gospel asks that we feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked, welcome the homeless, visit the prisoner and the sick. War does just the opposite. It makes my neighbor hungry, thirsty, homeless, a prisoner, sick. Look at Gaza. Look all over the world this very night. Peter put away the sword. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. And finally, the fifth gospel principle that is primary, that most Christians were brought up with from the time we were little. I'm sure it's being mentioned in our Bible study this week for our little children. And that is, we're all called as Christians to imitate Christ. Christ is a model of how to live, right? That's how we as Christians are supposed to live our lives. Put it pretty simply, could we seriously imagine Jesus pushing a button to launch a nuclear bomb, or registering for the draft, or wearing a military uniform for any state, or paying taxes for nuclear weapons, or working on a plant that manifests weapons of death? Or could you imagine Jesus getting up in the morning, having breakfast with his family, getting in the car, driving to Hancock Field, push a few buttons that release Reaper drones to the other side of the world, and then get home at 5 o'clock in time to bless the supper meal? And so there's pretty clearly, there's not a lot of doubt if we look honestly at the Gospels of Jesus. How did the early Christian church respond to this? Well, if we look at history, we see that Christianity in its first few hundred years, 300 years plus, were really attempting to live out this message. Pacifism was the dominant Christian values. Although there were isolated examples of Christians who served in the Roman military after 170 of the Common Era, Christians in the early church almost universally shunned military service and other forms of violence, well into the 4th century. And here's some quotes from some of our early church heroes. Justin Martyr, who died in 165. We who were filled with war and mutual slaughter and all wickedness have each and all throughout the earth changed our instruments of war, our swords into plowshares, and our spears into farming tools. Tertullian, who died in 220. The Lord, in disarming Peter, ungirt every soldier. And Maximilian, 20 years old, in 295, he was beheaded for refusing to join the Roman army. He's really the first noted Christian conscientious objector. And here's what he said before they took his head off. I will never serve you. You can cut off my head, but I will not be a soldier for this world, for I am a soldier for Christ. I will not take the badge of the soldier. If you insist, I will deface it. I am a Christian and am not allowed to wear the leaden seal around my neck. That's the first few hundred years. What happened? Well, we can get into what we might call the birth of civil religion. Beginning in the 4th century, the Christian religion, although still illegal in the Roman Empire, had expanded to the point which it could neither be effectively persecuted nor ignored. And so in 312 of the Common Era, the Emperor, Roman Empire Constantine, issued the Edict of Milan, which gave the Christians the right to free practice of their religion in the empire. It was during this period that Christians eventually came to accept participation in war. This gradual but forceful change from a pacifist church which we never hear about, to the church identified with war was the most dramatic shift in Christian ethics in the history of Christianity. Now, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Well, there's a lot of theological, philosophical, political, historical stuff that we really don't have time to develop tonight. But there's a bottom line. And the bottom line is that since Christianity now enjoyed the protection of the empire with many financial, political, and material perks, and considered themselves to be citizens of the empire, it merely was a matter of time before the responsibility as citizens would include military service. The fusion between Christianity and Rome grew so strong that by 380 of the Common Era, Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. And within a few decades, only Christians could serve as soldiers. Now, there's quite a switch from those early years. Rome's wars became Christian wars, and the rest is history. So how in God's name did Christianity, that was a pacifist church for over 300 years, by and large, ethically, morally, make peace with such a radical departure from the teachings of Jesus? That for centuries, many Christians chose martyrdom rather than military service. The ethical reasoning that brought them to be able to do this was the limited or the just war theory. Now, the concept of a limited or just war predates Christianity. Plato, Aristotle, Cicero. But the first Christian thinker to endorse the just war concept was St. Ambrose, who died in 397. And then St. Augustine, who died in 430, was the most famous advocate for the just war. But here's what Augustine said about the just war. Now, think of all the wars that we've experienced and think of this. In general, war is wrong. War is contrary to the gospel of peace. But there may be conditions under which war may not be a violation of the gospel, but may be an act of mercy and love. That's a stretch. When these conditions are faithfully fulfilled during an entire war, the war is not morally wrong. This teaching, which was then continued to be sort of synthesized, was the big step in the downward slope of Christianity, divorcing itself from the teaching of Jesus. But the conditions for a just war that even contemporary presidents have used, President Bush quoted the just war as a reason to go into Iraq. But just listen to the 5 conditions necessary for a just war and look at Afghanistan, look at Iraq, look at the Middle East, look at Vietnam, look at World War II, look at World War I. The first condition is that the war must be made by the king. In the United States, that's Congress must declare a war. Secondly, the war must be the last resort. Every other means of solving the conflict must be used first. Last resort. That was really how we got into Afghanistan. It took about 48 hours, right? The third is a good intention must guide the side declaring the war. The intentions must be good. Number 4, the war must ensure the protection of the innocent. The war must ensure the protection of the innocent. And 5, a proportion of good over evil must be kept. Now, if the just war theory ever worked, it ain't working in contemporary warfare. But in the history of Christianity, there's always been small voices of the peace church that has continued. Franciscan peace, the historic peace churches, Anabaptists, Quakers, Brethren. In contemporary times, we have the Society of Friends, Friends Service Committee, Catholic Worker Movement, Pax Christi, and many others. I got to go a couple more steps. Am I over? You are. Okay. Well, the slippery slope gets more slippery. How did we get into what's called the total war model in Christianity? Whereas the just war theory concludes that war is wrong, and there may be some exceptions, total war is a social philosophy which holds that human society is in a perpetual state of war, and victory in war requires the wiping out of the enemy. In Christianity, total war was called holy war, and in the 11th century signals another dramatic shift in Christian life, as did the shift to the just war in the 5th century. The Crusades wipe out the Muslims. The Inquisition wipe out the Protestants. Colonialism and neo-colonialism wipe out those natives. The Holocaust, surrounded by Christians, wipe out the Jews. In our contemporary world at this very moment, we know that there are many, quote, Christian nationalists who believe, really, most scholars would say, misinterpreting the book of Revelation, that we're in the last war between good and evil, and all gates must be open to ensure the defeat of evil. 2 more minutes here. Is there any hope? Yes. The vision of, let's say, many contemporary scholars, of many Christian, non-Christian faiths, is the vision of a world community that will save us, that advocates for the creation of an international democratic union of states that will abolish war, defend human rights, and secure social justice, protect the environment for future ages. Rules of international law would be taken seriously, that secures justice for all, guarantee of human rights, through a world charter and a Bill of Rights to protect political minorities. In essence, this is the 21st vision of the teachings of Jesus Christ that we find in the Gospels. In 1963, Pope John XXIII in Pacem in Terris, Peace on Earth, envisioned a world community of nations. The World Council of Churches has worked in many, many other interfaith organizations. But from most pulpits, it's one of the best kept secrets. I'd conclude with just a familiar quote from Martin Luther King, and he stated just 4 days before he was assassinated as a victim of violence at the National Cathedral in Washington, and it's even truer today. It is no longer a choice, my friends, between violence and nonviolence. It is either nonviolence or non-existence. And the alternative to disarmament, the alternative to a greater suspension of nuclear tests, the alternative to strengthening the United Nations and thereby disarming the whole world, may well be a civilization plunged into the abyss of annihilation. And our earthly habitat would be transformed into an inferno that even the mind of Dante could not imagine. To me, that's the vision of the gospel, and it's the vision that will save us. Thank you. I'm working on shorter homilies, but I guess
Now, Muhammad, I'm saying the best for last. Muhammad Qatar, former president of the Islamic Society of Central New York, and currently president of the Rama Free Health Clinic in Syracuse. And it's incredible what Muhammad had to do to get that clinic off the ground. which offers primary care, preventive care services, and a range of services for those who are low income. He holds a doctorate in Islamic studies, and in addition, is a financial software consultant. He also travels to his home in Egypt and works on projects to help the people there. And Magda is his companion that does things throughout our community. So we really should welcome Muhammad for giving us an insight which we need into Islam. Thanks, Muhammad.
Thanks, Paul. I'm glad to be here. I'm always happy to be in this place because I see good people here, good-hearted, and of course, Father Fred, really one of the best people in this community. I consider him. We talked with the rabbi, talked about many things, and he said we shouldn't go through our best things. I get the best quotes. And unfortunately, I wrote some best quotes, but I also have some bad quotes, sort of, if you can say that there are bad quotes in this. It's all in our understanding. What do we understand from things? One of the things I'm going to start with that people talk about what Sharia is, and Sharia, I'm not going to explain it, don't worry about it, but it is something like a bad thing. And it's the problem with wordings. It's a different language. So we try to, I don't understand what this means. It must be bad. And I try to make it the same thing as we heard, some of you might heard about the word jihad and what it means. So there are different interpretations in this. And what's happening now in the world, are we following our religions? We following the tenets of our religions? Answer is no. It's clear. I wouldn't say not every one of us, but the bad things, the good people normally or hopefully they will not be doing the bad things. But there are people that do bad things even if whichever religion they would come from. They would say, my religion said this. But it's an interpretation sometimes. And I'm going to go through a few of these, the good and the bad. When God created Adam very early on, and we know that the story of Adam, that God said to the angels, I will create a what we call Khalifa, which is a vicegerent on earth. And the angels said to God, are you going to create people or to bring people who will make mischief on earth? And God said, I know things you do not know. I know you do not know what I know. So God knew, and why or how the angels knew that there will be mischief on earth, God only knows. I don't know. But they knew things, and we take things that we would say, oh, in our tradition it says this, and I really like what the rabbi said. I take the best things and I say, see, my religion said this, but your religion says that, and that's wrong. And when we go through what the good and the bad, is it good and the bad in the religion? I would say no. Being a Muslim, as a Muslim, we understand that nothing bad comes from God, who is the one who brought all these religions. If we talk specifically about the three religions, they're all coming from God. But God said that there are different Sharia in every religion. It's the same coming from God. And the Sharia simply is laws. There are a bunch of laws that are different in Judaism and then in Christianity than in Islam. It doesn't affect anything, but that's, as was mentioned, the divorce laws, for example, they are different in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. and who would marry whom at what point, and what's the divorce, and the family, and the inheritance, and all of these things. They are different laws. That's fine. It doesn't affect anything. I adhere to this, and I will, as a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian, I have no problem with them. The problem comes when we deal with other people. Not that dealing within the same religion is okay, and we're happy dealing with each other. Of course, being in the same religion also, we fight each other in the religion. That's clear. And we as Muslims do that too. Not all, don't know about Christianity. Christianity is a peaceful religion, so they don't fight. But it's how do we interpret it? How do we say as human beings, and we have it as arrogance, I am better than this person. And we put ourselves in high pedestals, and we would say, I am better than him. We're in the same religion, but for example, we're supposed to pray 5 times a day. So I pray 5 times a day, and this guy maybe pray once a day. Or maybe he doesn't pray at all. Or maybe he does bad things. He's going to hell. We judge it right away. We're very good at judging. We're very good at judging what others are, where they're going, but we are the better people. We are an example of how people should be. Who said that? There's going to be only one judge at the end. And if we really know that, I cannot judge other people for what they're doing. I don't know where they're coming from. Maybe they have different upbringing, or they knew about things, they learn it differently, but it doesn't matter to me. We deal with people as good people, then I can deal with them. I don't care what religion they are. And I know, I see some of my friends here that I know for years. I love them all, and they're different than in our religion, and different than my own religion. So at the end, the judge is one, and that's what we have to have conscience of all the time, of who's going to judge me, not the others. A few of the things, a few of the good verses, I'll go quickly through that. O prophet, call to the way of your Lord with wisdom and good teaching. Argue with them in the most courteous way, for your Lord knows best who has strayed from his way and who is rightly guided. Sometimes we go, and it was mentioned about Islam specifically, that there is forced conversion to Islam, and they would get people at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that, or after he died, or Islam is spread by the sword. That never happened. And Islam said, in general, you cannot force anybody to come into a religion. That's not allowed. You cannot do it, categorically. And the justice, the other good thing, the justice with everybody. There is a verse that says, Allah does not forbid you from dealing kindly and fairly with those who have neither fought you nor driven you out of your homes. Surely Allah loves those who are fair. So there is, you can say it as good or bad, because this is you deal justly with everybody. The justice, the absolute justice in Islam. There are a lot of verses that I have here that I'll go through one. Believers, stand firm for Allah and bear true testimony. Do not let the hatred of other people, whether you hate other people or the hatred of other people to you, lead you to injustice. Be just. That is closer to righteousness. And be mindful of Allah. Surely Allah is all aware of what you do. The word be mindful of Allah repeated a lot of times in the Quran. Repeated, be mindful. Whatever you do, have God in your mind. Am I doing this right? Maybe I talked bad about somebody. I should not have done this, because we believe as Muslims, everything we say is recorded. Whatever any word that comes from our mouth is recorded, and we will be asked about it on the day of judgment. And the killing, about the juicy part. The killing, is it allowed in Islam, or is it allowed? The verse of, it actually refers to something that was in the Jewish tradition. On the account of his deeds, we decreed to the children of Israel that if anyone kills a person unless in retribution of murder or spreading corruption in the land, it is as if he kills all mankind. While if saves any life, it's as if he saves the lives of all mankind. Our messengers came to them with clear signs, but many of them continued to commit excesses in the land. So it's the same verse, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Rabbi. It's the same one. And it's actually, the Quran said we put this in the Bible. I'm sorry, in the Torah. That was in the Torah. In the Mishnah. I'm sorry, thank you for correcting me. So these are the things that we have common things on it. So do not kill. It's simple. And of course, it's in Christianity, and in any, do not kill anybody. And the story of the two sons of Adam, one killed the other. That's clear that we should not be doing this. The verses that says, kill them wherever you come upon them, and drive them out of the places which they have driven you out of. For persecution is far worse than killing. Now, of course, to explain this, that takes a couple of hours, not a couple of hours, but it takes half an hour. I only have a few minutes left, I know. So, but I would say we take things out of context, definitely. And we take things out of misquoting. We misquote the verses. And one of the things that I came across that we would say, for example, in the Bible, Jesus said, "Do not think I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but the sword." He also said, "But as for these enemies of mine who did not want me to be their king, bring them here and slaughter them in my presence." I don't know if this is right, and I have in Luke 19:17 and Exodus, and I have the quotation here. So you can tell me, maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me about that. But the idea is that it definitely is taken out of context. The first verse is at Matthew 10:34, and the second one is Luke 19:27. So again, these are completely taken out of context. And if you look at the whole religion of the whole what we do, that's not the message of Jesus, be upon him, or the message of Moses when he came with the message, peace be upon him. I say peace be upon him. That's what we say as a respect for all the prophets that we as Muslims we revere. Just to try to some remarks that I end up with. Some of the people, and I also believe that the problem is not religion. The problem is the absence of religion. That is really the problem. It is not religion, it's the absence of religion. And I have a quote from Jonathan Swift, who said, "We have just enough religion to hate one another, and we do not have enough to love one another." And that's the root of the problem. So we all fight on the religion. My religion is better than you, or we argue about things. But if we really come down and sit down with each other, whether in things we agree on or disagree on, I think, and I do believe, we're going to come up with good things and better understanding of each other, because all the three religions coming from the same God. So he's not going to favor anyone, and it is said God will not favor one over the other. One very last thing, in spirituality in Islam, it is said that there are as many ways to God as the number of human beings on earth. So this means that everyone has their own way of getting to God. Maybe they don't pray, maybe they don't come to the church, maybe they don't come to the synagogue, maybe they go to the mosque. I don't know. I'm not a judge. But if you have a connection with God, then definitely will be better, and we all will be in a better place. Thank you.
Wow, wow. Thank you all. And I know there's a lot of time pressure there, so I'm sorry about that. We do want to save time for questions and answers now, so my friend Sue is going to come and she will bring the microphone. I just want to emphasize to everyone that you need to hold this microphone right up to your mouth, and no one in live streaming will hear anything that's not on a mic. If you'd prefer to come up here and use this mic, that would work fine also. And for those of you who are live streaming, you can text your questions to these phone numbers if you just want to take a moment. Both numbers are 315-9308 is my number. And my friend Barbara will also be taking texts, 439-6240. So if you text a question, then we'll make sure that it gets to our panelists. Okay, thank you.
How do we reconcile these religious precepts with the ongoing conflict and war in Gaza and Ukraine? How can we make sense of that? How can we get beyond the current war and conflict into some kind of peace?
Sure. Send me to throw me to the lion's den. Sure. First of all, why specifically Gaza and Ukraine? There are so many conflicts going on right now, even in that area. Do I know how many of you actually heard of the Hezbollah missile that killed 12 children playing soccer just this Saturday? Not a heck of a lot. Okay, a few, yeah, like half of you. Okay, all right, something like that. All right, that's the conflict in northern Israel, where, by the way, I'm just reminding you that Israel and Lebanon actually do not really have any dispute. Israel is not occupying any part of Lebanon. Hezbollah is sitting at the southern Lebanese border against the Lebanese government's wishes and throws missiles, and sometimes they fall on children playing soccer. How many of you are thinking about the wars in the civil war in Syria? What's going on in China with the, I forget the name, the Falun Gong, right? Gaza and Ukraine are like what I called before the soup du jour, right? It is very cool to think about it. And they are horrible wars with lots of casualties. But, you know, I'll tell you something, I'll be honest. I heard about this panel about 2 weeks ago when Mark asked me to talk about nonviolence in Jewish tradition. Nobody told me that it was about Gaza. Okay. I only heard about that this afternoon. Not 100% sure that I would have come if I would have known that. Okay? Because if it was about peace in the Holy Land, peace in Israel and in Gaza, that's something else. But if you look specifically at Gaza and you're ignoring, you know, it's almost a bad word to say context these days, but if you're ignoring the context of what started the war in Gaza, then I think we have a problem. And how can we reconcile these beautiful teachings that we read? Because at the end of the day, people are people. And horrible people will do horrible things. It doesn't matter what religion they're from. There are fabulous Muslims and fabulous Christians and fabulous Jews and fabulous atheists, by the way. And there are horrible ones in all of these religions. Not every person who claims to be religious would follow these principles. Like I said before, the fact that that my Judaism is very, very different than somebody else's Judaism does not make them any less Jewish, right? I may think that they're wrong. They are wrong, but it does not mean that everybody will have the same interpretation of the religion. Religion is not a monolith. You cannot categorize people just because of the group that they belong to. Want to take this all? After throwing me in.
Well, I didn't think that it was about Gaza also, and that doesn't mean that we don't talk about it. It's one of the things that we would say. We mentioned about we want the non-violence, and the violence that's going on now in the Middle East is one of the things. Gaza. It happened. I'm not going to go through and argue about what happened and who started and who did what and who did that. That's not the place here. But it is a place that we don't have to get into that now, but we have a group in Summit, and there is a discussion, the Syracuse Area Middle East Dialogue, led by Paul and what I needed to say is, we don't need to hide anything, but also there is, if I want to talk about this and what happened in the 12 people who died, and then we can always talk about the 40,000 people who died, we can talk about the 1 million who died or were killed before, the destruction of this. That's not, I don't think this is the place that we want to do this in. But at the end, I would suggest that we get people from your congregation and from the places from from this church here, and maybe from the Islamic Society, and we sit down and we can talk to each other. We're not going to say, we're not going to resolve things, because Summit has been going on for 40-some years.
And you still haven't solved the Middle East conflict?
We're getting there. We're getting there. Just give us just a couple of weeks. But it's not going to be resolved, because it's a lot higher than where we're at. Our impact is not important, but what we're here in a church, in a place of worship, and we're connecting with God. So I would do and God, in what we say, He's going to judge us, not how come you did not stop this war, the 12 people who died, or the 40,000 people who were killed. How come you didn't stop it? I can't. There is a limitation of what we can do. But Allah and God will ask us, what's in your heart? Did you agree to it? Are you condoning what happened, whether the 12 kids who died or the 40,000 people who died or were killed? Do you agree with it? Of course. And we say, am I saying one life is better than the other? No. In all the religions, in our religions, it says one life. A life is a life, regardless what it is. As you mentioned, whether it's atheist, Buddhist, or anything, it doesn't matter. It's created by God, and God is the one who's going to judge us. And then I want to have a clean heart, not because I felt we're going to talk about this. It's not a trap that we talk about it, and definitely it is not. But what's in our heart? How can we do it? I have our friends here who've been standing on the corner for years, supporting what's happening in Gaza, supporting or against what's happening. I admire these people, not because they are there for Gaza, but they have a mission. When they go in front of God, that's my belief. That's my belief. When they go, they would say, we did what we can do. We did all what we can do. And so what I'm getting out of here is that I think we can get people to sit down and have a total disagreement with each other. But that's fine. Let's talk to each other. Let's find out how we can have a better understanding of each other, our points of view.
We're gonna end up at 8:30. There's no question. One question? Maybe. I mean, I've got a question. I mean, I don't think that what you said is valuable. I think it's very valuable. I think the UN owns this problem because they never finished the partition. They never finished the partition of the two states. And one of the biggest problems in terms of violence is the occupation, which is more than aggravated the Palestinians for 50 years. I don't know what the right term for the aggravation would be. Let's say enraged. The occupation has enraged the Palestinians for years and years and years. So I believe the UN owns the failure to develop a sovereign Palestine. If there was a sovereign Palestine and there was no occupation, the whole equation of aggravations, skirmishes, rocketing back and forth, I think would be at a much lower level, much lower level. Now, and I'm going to finish with just a second comment. The last Gaza, I said, if there's any reason to intervene in the war, it's the wounding and the trauma to the children. You hear 40,000 dead on one side, and Israelis, it's probably approaching 3,000. The trauma to the children in Israel is probably over 200,000 children have been traumatized. So my point is the motivation to ceasefire, to me, is not the numbers we're hearing. It's the lives of the children who will be on the earth longer than the soldiers and their parents and their aunts and the uncles. The motivation ought to be, let's protect the minds, the nerves, the memories of the children, because we're talking about 2 million children being traumatized day after day in a lot of cases.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the panelists, even though maybe panelism isn't the way to go, I don't know. But I think despite whatever weaknesses panels present, I think the three of you did an excellent job. I want to thank you. But I'm not here to praise you, necessarily. I'd like to challenge you. I'd like each of you, succinctly, if it's possible, to say what's in your heart in terms of what is the responsibility of your respective religions to amplify the message that you each articulated today. What is that specific responsibility? I think, Father Fred, you started off with Pope Francis. I'm wondering if you could either add to that and the same with the other two panelists.
Well, I think, you know, from a Roman Catholic perspective, I think it was a German philosopher, Heidegger, said the problem with Christianity isn't that it doesn't work, it's never been tried. And if we look at, just looking at the Catholic Church, Catholic social teaching of the last 100 years plus or whatever, we're at a point in Catholic moral, ethical understanding that the just war theory is no longer moral or whatever. The teachings of our councils and our popes and theologians are very, very clear on the hopelessness of war, etc. The problem is, there's great fear, especially in countries like the United States, for bishops, pastors, to help the community learn what Jesus and his teachings were all about, and what modern moral theology is about, Catholic social teaching, because they're afraid they'll be rejected or misunderstood or whatever. So unfortunately, and this is a judgment I would say, but when it comes to these issues, most Catholic churches do not preach good news or bad news. They don't preach any news. They're just talking about issues that, So I think that's our problem, that if we were really to teach what is in our wonderful documents, perhaps Catholics could have a better effect in moving us towards nonviolence.
So this is a loaded question, and I think I'm going to reply in a totally different direction. I think that right now clergy, especially Muslim and Jewish Christians, sit this one out, I'm sorry, are dealing with congregants who are traumatized, right? I think the responsibility of clergy is to support pastor and help people, because we have huge groups of people who believe that they're alone in the world and nobody else cares about them, right? I see my responsibility as tending to my flock right now. We have, and I think that if we could somehow come out of this trauma stronger, then maybe we can fulfill our mission in the world and help with nonviolence. But right now, speaking as Jews, and imagine that Muslims are experiencing the same thing. We are hurt, we are traumatized, and we feel alone. We feel like most of our allies have abandoned us. And right now, it's a time to look within. I've been growing up in Israel. I was in the peace camp since I was born, pretty much. I remember being in demonstrations since I was 3. Okay? I got into Middle East studies because I wanted to my original goal was to get into the peace negotiation teams and the foreign ministry. That drove me to religion, right? And Ecclesiastes say, "Et milchama ve'et shalom," time for war, time for peace, a time for many things and many other things. This is a time for us to tend to our flock, to see how we can come out of this trauma, not only stronger, but better human beings. Maybe if we can do that, then maybe we could continue to work for peace, because right now, there's another line, just as if there is a mitzvah to say words that will be heard, there's a mitzvah to not say words that will not be heard. And some words cannot be heard right now while we're still licking our wounds. Thank you.
I think it's just one of the things that's common across all of our religions is the golden rule. Do unto others what you want to be done unto you, or whichever way you say it. Is that if I like something for myself, I like my human, not Jew, Christian, Muslim, my human friend to have the same. If I don't want killing, if I don't like the killing of a Muslim, then I should not be like the killing of a Jew or a Christian. It's as simple as that. And it's common across it, and we forget about it. And we think only, see what happened to me, see what happened to me, see what they did to me, see what did you do on the other side. Now we can keep arguing about it. And of course, there is always things that are right and things that are wrong. And at our own level, we should just stick to that and again, keep it in our heart. But at a higher level, though, for the governments that are leading us, we should question them. Is this moral to no avail? Yes, we can question to no avail. But it also, as a Muslim, I would say, God will ask me, why didn't you open your mouth and talk about it? Why didn't you just say something rather than just sitting there and do nothing? I don't have to be hateful. I don't want to hate the other. But I would say, would I like this to be done to my brother? Would I like the killing of the 12 kids in the field to happen? No, I do not. I don't want it. But at the same time, I should. If I say no, and if I stand, I say that this is wrong, then I would say killing on the other side is wrong too. That's the only way. If I see it only from my narrow point of view, we're never going to get out of it. We are in a place of worship, and we should get out of it. Get our heart. And I keep, again, in Islam, maybe you know it says, Allah is not going to judge you by your appearance, by how you look, but it's going to judge you by your heart. What's in your heart? So let's clean our heart. That's what I would say. Clean our heart and feel bad for the other before I feel bad for my own. Then that's maybe we will get somewhere. The governments, God help us. I don't know, whichever direction they're going to lead us on, we might not have any control over that.
I just want to say we are coming up at 8:30 here, and I think we're willing to stay for a few. Sure. So if there are a few more questions, I think we'll entertain them. But for those of you who were not anticipating staying, I understand if it's time for you to leave. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. My name is Hadass. I'm from Israel. I live here in Syracuse for the past year. I just heard about this event an hour ago, and I felt obligation to come here. I'm happy for those kind of events to come up because we don't see that much, and especially here in Syracuse. The tiny little, I just want to say that in the minute that I heard of this, both of us just threw our little kids, and yeah, we let someone else dealing with them. But because it's so meaningful for us to be here and to hear these kind people talking and to hear the rest of the people. I'm not sure what my question is. I just want to say that on October 7th, I woke up at 3 in the morning, getting tons of messages from my family, which lives in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, which is right on the border of Gaza. This is one of the communities that were attacked the hardest. It was a horrible night and a horrible days after. My family is there. My parents were in the safe room for 20 hours. My brother and my sister-in-law and my nephew, year and 8 months old, were in their safe room, while citizens from Gaza walked in to their houses. They weren't like Nukhba, they didn't come with any weapons. And they tried to make them go out of their house, of their room. They were hiding there. And they told them, we have kid here, go away. And they told them, tell us where's the money, we want them the money. And then they let their house on fire. Luckily, they survived because they were very, very brave and they ran out of the house. But they were, for a very long time, in the hospital, fighting for their lives, with 50-60% burning, the three of them. So those were citizens. I also want to say, you were talking about being, that you need to have a belief, that all of us need to believe in God. So I want to say that the kibbutzim, the communities that I'm from, all this area, all of it, almost not all of it, but secular communities. So we don't necessarily believe in any God. And so many people from these communities were peace activists, okay? They didn't believe in God necessarily, but they really wanted peace. They were. And actually, my parents' best friends, Cindy and Igal, she's American, they were murdered in their house. They were hiding in their safe room while the terrorists came and just shoot a tons of explosions, so nothing left. It took weeks to recognize them. They were peace activists, okay? They were, really. And so it's just for you to know that you don't have to believe in any God. You can be just a person who wants peace, because a lot of us want peace. And about the kids that are very traumatized in both sides of the border, absolutely. This is so sad. And we cry for every person who dies. Not necessarily on the other side. Not necessarily, because people who are taking little kids and put them in captivity, in tunnels. What happened with my best friend, Smadar, she and her husband were killed. But they took their daughter, Abigail, maybe you've heard of her, 3-year-old. They took her without her parents to Gaza in tunnels. And I don't know if you know or not, because I don't know what people know, but the cheering when those kids came there, this is something that you cannot forget. This is something you cannot... Okay, I will finish in a minute. Thank you. So just remember those things, and thank you. It is important, everything you said here, and it's important to hear those stories as well. Thank you.
Can I just want one thing, please, for you specifically. I appreciate what you went through and what people went through. And I think to get us to understand this, I think we should get you, specifically, you went through that, with somebody from Gaza who went through the same thing. And you sit down together. That's the only way we can do it, how we can connect on a human level, not just the talk. We have people here who went through that. We have people here who lost over 100 people from their families. And you should get together. They will appreciate this. And I can arrange this, and I have people can arrange this. I would love that we would do this. Can you get your... Thank you very much. If you can you get your information? Can you get it to this lady with the hat there, standing up there? You give her your information. I really would love this. It's something that's concrete that can happen from here. So we're not just talking, but we're doing something. And that's what happened when Nelson Mandela came out, and we all want to understand what happened there. He was in jail for 27 or 29 years, and he was fighting. When he came out, the truth and reconciliation, and we talk to each other, and they cry with each other about what happened. You can make a big difference when you see other people here.
Good evening, and thank you very much for your talk. Rabbi, you had said that you hope after this trauma happened that you will come out in a better place. I saw after the Holocaust, people moved from Europe into Palestine doing the same thing that European did to them, to the Palestinians. They got their homes, they killed their people. So I'm not sure how you see this time that it will be any better. And Reverend Fred, you're saying Christianity is about peace. And I do agree 100%. However, those Christians are trying to bring all the Jews back into Israel, so they end up converting them and killing them. So, what do you see that as Jesus is studying or Jesus is teaching to them? And yes, I heard about the 12 kids, and my heart went out to them. I've also heard about the 1,600 kids, and my heart bleed for every little one of them. You have a safe room, or you had a safe room, or your family, or some your friend that had a safe room. People in Gaza, people in the West Bank do not have a safe room. They didn't have a safe home, they didn't have a safe hospital, they didn't have a safe place. So, yes, we need to talk together. We need to feel each other. And we need to help one another and feel the pain for every little child. The question for the two of you now. Thank you.
Do you want to respond to, or?
I think I just said that we try to get together. Just get people together and talk. No preconditions, please. There is no preconditions. Heart to heart, get people to talk to each other. And they will come up with something better than what we keep talking about. I know they will.
Rabbi, you want to respond? You don't have to.
I'm saying that I feel your pain. I also think that you made some very, very difficult assumptions here that are inaccurate, and I hope that you have the heart to listen to people and understand the difference between different types of Christians and different types of Jews and get some historical facts right, because some of the things you said are very, very hurtful.
Okay, I did receive this text, and I think it might be a moment to share it. The person did not identify themselves, but the remote viewer says, more and more it seems that the war in Gaza is not about religions, but that religion has become an excuse in the war. There is so much pain on all sides. Is there any way out of this? Kind of the question. I think you covered it in various ways.
The way out of this is to care more for our children than we care for money, power, property, or whatever else can be in our minds that tells us that we have to take something over, control something else. All those things are irrelevant if you're damaging your children and they don't turn out right to be good, kind-hearted, loving people. We don't interfere in children's disputes because they have so few of them sometimes that last any length of time. If you butt in, then you continue that dispute a little longer than if they were left alone to play and settle their issues sometimes. And we don't settle our issues either. We don't grow out of this where we want this, and this is our toy. This is our land here. This is our money there. And this is the power in this position here. All that's irrelevant if we're damaging our children. Our children's minds our children's safety. Our city streets are not safe. We're having war in our streets. You can't get a gallon of milk. You can't go in a playground and play with a toy gun if you're the wrong color. And you can't go in your house and call the police to come help you when you have a mental illness. They don't send the right people. They send a police officer that's been taken away from different jobs because of his mental state. And you get shot in the eye because you asked for police help. You're killed, and you're a young mother of 2 and 3 children. You know what I mean? This is crazy. We are insane. We're hurting our children. If we stop and consider our children and what's best for them, what's best for the planet we leave them, we wouldn't be having all this global warming issue. We wouldn't be having our children terrified and doing drills in school that they have no business needing to do. If we would educate them completely and wholeheartedly with the truth, not with trying to wash their minds of what we see as wrong. All those things are interfering with helping them to grow up to be true loving children of God. We will never become brothers and sisters to each other unless we show our children an example of what that really means.
Just important, please stop saying the war in Gaza. This war is not in Gaza, it's in Israel and in Gaza. And in this area of the Middle East, it's not war in Gaza. You know what's going on in north of Israel right now?
Hell.
Okay, thousands of people are evacuated for 9 months. So it's not just there. Please just, it's a little thing.
Okay, can everyone hear me? I'm going to speak in continuance with that wonderful woman back there.
But only for a very brief
short
moment.
period of time, because I'm going to remind what all of you have said. We have one God. And I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian, but I'm horrified with what's going on with the Christian nationalists. We have to look at our own selves, okay? This, well, may be our future. So we need to have our clergy come forward with the truth. It can't be changed for reasons of war. It can't be changed for reasons to dislike another person. We have to realize that we have one God and that we need to be kind to each other. We need to respect. I love the idea of different groups getting together, because the more we talk, the more we're going to understand and respect. We may agree or disagree. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to learn respect for each other. That's how we're going to teach and save our children here.
Okay.
And this is how we're going to help with our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think it's really time to bring this to an end, but it certainly reinforces to me the need to continue this kind of dialogue, and maybe we will continue to have conversations. Where did Paul go? I don't know, about sponsoring this kind of dialogue. So I would like to thank very much our panelists, all of you. Okay. I feel compelled to say I'm not sure where there was a little breach in communication, but this panel was always organized under the title of Gaza Finding the Road to a Just Peace.
No, that's a mistake. I have to stand up and because Paul and I'm the coordinator for SAMU, this was a discussion on nonviolence within the 3 faiths.
Right, under the larger heading. Okay. Okay, well, I'm just apologizing for that, because I think there was miscommunication on some level with all of that. So I appreciate all of you rising to the occasion and dealing perhaps in a very difficult context.
Regardless, I think we ended well together, and for whatever it
Yes.
is, I think we end that we need to talk to each other.
Right, absolutely.
That's what it is. And
That's
if
right.
something, just let's talk to each other.
Right.
Clarify things, yes.
Absolutely. I think many of us would know that it is my understanding that the original source of the word religion comes from a translation that means ligament or tying together, and that if our religions can do anything to tie us together and to tie us with the greater cosmos, that's, I think, the benefit of our sharing together. So thank you again for being here, and we'll keep you informed. We have at your disposal yard signs which proclaim the same message that you're seeing here in front of you. So please, please feel free to take them and display them in whatever way is comfortable and meaningful to you. It will continue to be available at the All Saints website, and I will investigate whether there will be an ongoing video available.
Thank the three of you.
Thank you. Sure. Hi. Hi, Mohammed. How are you? Good. It's good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time.
Yes, yes, yes.
You did a great job. You do know everyone. No, actually, have we met?
I think we must have at some gathering or another.
Bernie Bregman.
I had talked to you about it.
Ah, there we go.
Because I was when we came to your service, and then you had the debriefing.
Yes, that's right. Yes, 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 yes. There we go.
And I said something, but I didn't feel like I was at a mass. And you said, well, we did everything we're supposed to. We just do it differently. It was unclear. No, I had a wonderful time today.
Oh, that was powerful circle.
Yes.
This was great, and it shouldn't have gone quite as long, because there were people that weren't asking questions.
You're right. That's a good point.
You had made a great point about having your friend there talk to the other woman, and then two of them, they went ballistic. So.
Yeah. Some of the panelists went over their 15 minutes too. That's less time for questions.
Well, they weren't really questions.
No, there were.
You almost have to have people write their
Yeah,
questions down.
we've learned a lot of that. We have people write on an index card and somebody can flip through and ask the questions because
Because people make statements.
That's a very good idea. Yeah.
people love to make speeches.
Yeah, yeah. That's a very good idea. Yeah. Meg, that was a good thought. Maybe we could have people write, just like people call in, text in a message, that people could write on a card questions. Sure. So that we.
Rather than have speeches.
Rather than have.
Right. Well, trying to do that balance between
you
a
did your
dialogue
best.
and Q&A, but yes, good point.
Yeah, it was, it's things we learn from, and people would like things or not like.
Good to
That's
get everybody
okay.
together.
It's understandable.
It's good.